Despite yesterday's desperate attempt by Donald Trump to personally bully Republican holdouts into backing his one big beautiful bill, bombshell reporting from this morning indicates that that may have backfired spectacularly and that Republicans are further away from accomplishing Trump's goal than ever. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as Axios and Punchbowl and other places are reporting, Mike Johnson faces 11th hour blow up on Trump's big bill. We're going to take a look at this clip from CNN. It's about 2 minutes long, and we got some other clips to look at as well. But here they are unpacking it.
Are looking at right now is uncertainty in this House Rules Committee because Speaker Mike Johnson is clearly still not there with both conservatives and some of those moderate members. The fact that we have not seen this manager's amendment, which is a package that includes potential changes to this bill, and it's already 9 a.m. The House Rules Committee has been meeting for 8 hours at this point. That's a sign that there are still negotiations playing out. When I spoke to
I just want to say here real quick, and we'll get to this. Republicans deliberately scheduled this debate at 1 a.m., hoping the American people would not see in prime time the fiscal irresponsibility of this bill and the cruel shredding of social safety nets like Medicaid that's also in this bill.
The Speaker around 7 a.m. this morning, he told me that that manager's amendment was coming very shortly. Obviously, it's been 2 hours. We still haven't seen it. And there are just questions about what exactly they're still debating as part of this bill. Now, last night, there was a breakthrough with some Republicans from high tax districts in New York known as the SALT Caucus. They were able to find some kind of an agreement that they're working toward to basically raise the SALT cap. I asked the Speaker about that and how it's being received from some conservatives who've been very skeptical. Here he was.
Is this idea of 40,000 cap over 10 years the deal at this point?
That's the agreement we came to, and I think the SALT Caucus, as they call themselves, it's not everything they wanted, but I think they know what a huge improvement that is for their constituents, and it gives them a lot to go home and talk about.
Are conservatives okay with that SALT change?
No one is delighted by that, right? But they understand the necessity of our handling this issue and keeping the majority. And I think, again, with all the great things in this bill, everyone's going to have a lot to go home and brag about.
So again, I just want to say, the Andy Harris, who is the leader of the House Freedom Caucus, that conservative faction, because of these, improvements in SALT, he says that the bill is now worse than ever. So as far as he is concerned, he and his caucus are concerned, this bill is worse than it's ever been, and they're further away from passing it. This is the position in which Mike Johnson finds himself. In order to give to the moderates, he has to piss off the conservatives and vice versa. It's very much an unruly caucus.
And what you see there is also a speaker who says he got barely any sleep last night. He's been meeting with folks on all sides of his conference over the course of the evening. But again, it's a huge question mark right now if conservatives are going to be okay with this potential increase to the SALT cap and what that does to the vote total. Remember, the speaker can only lose 3 Republicans, assuming everyone is in attendance later today.
We'll also know, I think that number has changed because Democratic congressman and ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Jerry Connolly, passed away. He lost his battle with cancer that we found that out earlier this morning. Just want to say as a sidebar, it's tragic. Jerry Connolly was a good member of Congress. He was, to the extent that his age and health permitted, a bulldog, but he should also not have been in that position. That should have gone to AOC. And this is something the Democratic Party is going to have to really reckon with, because I think since the last election, since 2024, 3 Democratic lawmakers have died. So anyway, now let's get again to the more recent updates. So Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News says that the Republican House Freedom Caucus and Mike Johnson are going to go meet with Trump at the White House. So Trump is obviously panicking about this. He's expected to tell the HFC that the bill needs to pass today. But again, what that shows is a total infirmity of the current position, that it's not looking good in its current state. We also have new updates about what this bill will do to the American people. And I want to play this clip, which emphasizes a recent development, courtesy of the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office.
And does that, in the end, mean most working Americans will be better off? No. Because also out from CBO just tonight are the distributional effects of this bill. It's in its entirety. And what does it show? The bottom 10% of Americans will actually be poorer as a result of this bill, with the biggest benefit going to the top 1% of Americans. What is also quite clear is that this bill is not entirely paid for. Even after all of those cuts to Medicaid, all of those cuts to Medicare, all of those cuts to the Affordable Care Act and nutrition assistance and on, they don't come close to paying for the cost of the tax cuts. So how is the rest paid for? It isn't. Just tacking on more and more to our national debt.
So let's deal with this, folks. It is just objectively true that the Republican Party is fiscally profligate. Now, as somebody who's not a fiscal hawk, that's okay. If you're going to spend, at least be spending it on the right priorities, but they're not even doing that. So they're failing in their own goals. They're being incredibly hypocritical about it, and their spending priorities largely suck. And they're lying. Oh, this is going to be paid for. No, it's not. Even if you cut $880 billion out of Medicaid, which will effectively strip health insurance from 14 million Americans, according to the nonpartisan CBO, you're still not paying for this thing. So it's just a total shit show every which way. All this does is give more benefit to the people who need it the least in this country and strip benefits from the people who need it the most. Speaking of this new development from the nonpartisan CBO, here's a Republican lawmaker losing his shit, but we have a twist.
How do you address the concerns over how much this costs and how much this adds to the deficit? Is it even possible to allay those concerns at this point?
Well, look, first of all, the CBO score is wrong. The CBO has been wrong repeatedly. It was wrong when it projected budget surpluses with the Inflation Reduction Act, the Green New Deal. It was wrong by almost $500 billion. It was wrong when they scored the first Trump tax cuts. They were wrong by over $1 trillion. Why? Because the CBO doesn't do this scoring dynamically. And what we know about this bill is it's jet fuel for the economy.
You said the CBO, but Congressman, you say the CBO is wrong, but you have your fellow Republicans are concerned because the CBO is the only nonpartisan scorekeeper that Congress has. And
so yes, she's right that a lot of Republicans, including Thomas Massie, are upset because this objectively adds to the deficit. That's part of the reason why the more conservative flank, the House Freedom Caucus, they are rebuking this bill. They just are. Because even in their estimation, it's not a progressive talking point. It's not a liberal talking point. It's actually a principled fiscal conservative talking point, which is borne out by the facts that this is not deficit neutral. This will explode the deficit. This will devastate the deficit. And Donald Trump added to the deficit all 4 years he was in office, even prior to COVID. And as people point out, the same guy who's like, CBO sucks, loves to tout the CBO. Make no mistake, CBO says the real cost of the Democrats' Build Back Better bill will add nearly $5 trillion in addition to the deficit. That was in December of 2021. He also said in February of 2014, by citing the CBO to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. He cited it in February 2022. Instead of building on the work of the China task force, Pelosi rushed a $300 billion deficit spending bill to passage without a CBO score. Well, why would you care if the CBO sucks? That's from 2022. And then again in 2021, November, talking about the CBO when attacking President Biden's agenda. So these people are unprincipled hypocrites when it comes to the CBO. Now, I mentioned that Republicans tried to deliberate the rules about this and pass the rules about this in the cloak of night, in the shadow of night, when people weren't looking. Democrat Jim McGovern calls them out pretty brutally on this.
This is why people hate Washington. So if you guys think this ugly bill is so damn beautiful, like Trump keeps saying, you should have the courage to debate it in prime time. Madam Chair, we should reconvene at a reasonable hour and debate your bill in full view of the American people, not in the middle of the night like cowards. And for that reason, I move that the Rules Committee do now adjourn.
They're trying to hide it because they know this bill will be unpopular the more Americans learn about it. So they're hoping to keep Americans from learning about it. If Jim McGovern got even more direct in another part.
Is that really what you came here to do? I don't understand this. I don't understand the cruelty. And let me say this to every Republican member who votes for this. You own it. You own it. You own every hospital that closes, every child that goes to bed hungry, every senior who loses care, and every American family forced to choose between groceries and rent, between their heating bill and their child care, between their kid's birthday party and their parents' long-term care. So you guys can force us to debate this bill in the dead of night. You can do it while the country sleeps. But the American people will wake up tomorrow morning, and I guarantee you they will wake up to how terrible your agenda is. They will remember this moment. They will remember who stood with the billionaires and who stood with them.
I hope so. And of course, it's Democrats who are obligated to make that case to remind the American people, because I don't think you should just assume facts speak for themselves. You have to constantly, incessantly remind Americans with our short attention span and our other priorities like, our spouses, our children, our, work and things like that. I mean, Democrats have to really deliver this message if Republicans go through with it. But yeah, this bill is a disaster. And again, it says something that despite pressure from Donald Trump, which may succeed in the end. I mean, second time, third time's a charm. This may work. I think you should always bet on Republicans sacrificing principle. Like if you're a gambling person, you have to bet. You're better off betting that Republicans violate their principle for the sake of Donald Trump than anything else. I think probabilistically speaking, you'll win your bet. But it says something about how clownish of an effort this has been and how the Republican Party just really sucks at governing and getting its ducks in a row. In some ways, this bill is less likely to pass than it was yesterday or the day before, Trump showed up to make his personal appeals. So we'll see what happens, but clearly the Republicans are panicked, and hopefully we will see a continuous failure in this respect. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.